So what we tend to do is to focus on some of the gaps that need to help government to understand that, well, if by providing alternative views, to say that, look, if you focus on this, it will make greater impact.
Which takes us to the new identity you're taking on.
Exactly.
So what are the areas of concentration now?
Yeah, so in fact, like I said, actually over the last 30 years plus, our focus has been on poverty eradication. Now we are moving and looking at social justice. So we're talking about things around equity, justice, transparency, talking about feminism, feminist leadership, which I believe the regional director is well placed to explain, because she's also...
Of course, she's in a better position But so you are still, at least we gather, you are still a social justice organization, which brings me to my next point, if I may, so we can touch on.
Yes.
You're obviously, you still find addressing inequality pertinent in the work you do. And, this is whether it's social or financial, it remains important in the continent you work in Asia. I know ActionAid is in Asia, is in Africa, is in Latin America. I saw a report on the trends of global inequality, and this is what I want us to touch on. It's a bit verbose, so perhaps I will just have to paraphrase. But basically, at a global level, inequality between people has been rising almost continuously since the 1980s. I am sure there are factors that account for this. But as Regional Director, Tayo, for West Africa, for Horn and West Africa, are you in a position to tell us the causative agents for inequality, for discrimination, for exclusion in this part of the world?
Yes, I think I can try to attempt that, because it keeps increasing every day here anyway. So, but for me, I think the major causes of inequality, if you look at the trends, yes, people have said that people are becoming richer over the years. Looking at the past 10, 15 years, generally people are becoming richer. We have the middle class expanding. But rather than that reducing poverty, is increasing poverty, because now the disconnect between the poor and the rich is widening. Before we had the upper class, who were just very few, and then the rest of us were behind. But now we have a growing middle class, and that middle class that is growing, rather than it helping to narrow inequality and poverty, is widening. And some of the reasons why that is because we have not yet tackled the root causes of why people are poor. One of the key things that we need to address in our part of the world, one of the key things that we need to address is corruption. Corruption, rather than it reducing, it seems to be expanding. And that means that the kind of support that we need to give in terms of structures, in terms of systems, social amenities that the poor need to have access to is reduced, because that money is being shifted. That's one. The other one is around patriarchy. We know that we've been talking quite a lot around issues of women's rights for years, talking about violence against women, resources for women to encourage them in terms of being balanced, in terms of their economic activities and all that. But because of the widening gap between the poor and the rich, rather than that part being resourced, it's increasing. And there's not been any shift in the mindset of the people themselves. When I say mind shift, all the issues that we have been contending with for years regarding issues of women's rights, regarding issues of violence against women, seems to be there, because the cycle continues. It starts from when a child is young, a socialization that is given to the boys in terms of the difference between they and the girls. In secondary school, you see how boys are raping girls, beating up girls, because that is what they saw, their parents, their peers, their environment, that's what is there. And so when you see that continuing, no matter the level or class that you find yourself, that is still being perpetrated. And when that is perpetrated, naturally there is no shift in the change that needs to happen. So that's one key area as well. The other one is about resource control. When you look at the resources in the part of the world that we're in now, the distribution of resources still seems to be very, very skewed towards those who have the power and those who do not have it. There is no equitable distribution of all of this, and it's also contributing to the increasing inequality that we find in the world that we have today. And some of the resources we're talking about resources around the extractives, the oil and all of that. Land resources, for example. Women do not have access to land, even to farm, whether they're going to use that as a lease, or even owning that. That is one of the key areas that we still see.
Just because you're born a woman.
That's it. just because you're a woman, you're already naturally marginalized. Yes. And so what are people doing to change that status quo? Not much is being done there, and that is why we've seen that the inequality keeps widening all the time, keeps widening. And then the issue of migration that we're seeing now, that is happening also in Europe, from Africa, from Asia, and all of that, it still stems back down to power, inequality, and the fact that our governments are not exactly very sensitive to the needs of the poor. And so when wars happen, when crisis happens, the worst hit usually are still the poor, particularly the women and the children. And so, of course, people want to move away to a climb that is that appears to be
majority of all those migrants, who attempt to cross the Mediterranean, are actually from the sub-region.
Absolutely. Yes. And most of their own reasons, if we really examine ours, is not so much as in because there is one particular danger in terms of war, but more of economic reasons. Right. And that's why we see a lot of movement going towards the Mediterranean to cross and seek a better life for themselves. So that means our government needs to step up in Africa, in the global south, really, because also Asia is going through the same thing. To what extent can our governments begin to examine those things that are causing people to migrate, and then see what kind of infrastructure, what kind of system we need to put in place to at least give them the basic shelter, food, and resources that can make them feel like a human being. And that is one area that ActionAid has noticed already, and we're saying, how do we begin to work more with governments, work with corporates in terms of their corporate social responsibility, such that some of this migration that we're seeing, the inequalities that we're seeing, how can they be reduced? How do we work together more?
And then I'll come back to you on that, because we'd like to know what interventions, what development interventions ActionAid has proffered or implemented over the years as regards addressing issues like these, like basic education, women's rights, etc. But Sumaila, all of the causative agents she mentioned for inequality, for exclusion, for discrimination, for the sub-region, are these a reflection on Ghana?
Yeah, sure. I just want to also make an addition to that. One of the other causative factor is the dominant economic model, in terms of the new liberal market economy that we are running. You find out that if you look at even the manifestos of most of these parties that are campaigning, everything is based on private sector, and so we are opening up our system to the private sector. How many of us are going to have the capacity to be able to participate in that kind of economy? If you look at Ghana, if you take the population of Ghana, if you look at the number of poor people as compared to people who are capable of participating in that, then it will tell you that increasingly a lot of the people are going to be marginalized, because the understanding of making sure that the private sector is the engine of growth is the fact that it's going to create jobs and so on, and so the trickle-down effect is there. But I'm sure if you've been listening to people, if you've been listening to discussions, there are people who are arguing that with all these things, the trickle-down effect is not really being felt by the ordinary people and for whom we are working for. So increasingly, you have a few people becoming rich, and the already rich people are becoming richer. And so the income inequality is widening up. So if we don't actually address this, then it becomes
where does ActionAid come in all of this?
ActionAid comes in terms of examining some of these economic models. If you look at, for example, our work around tax justice, so our work around tax justice is one thing that we're looking at. You're
just about to take the wind out of my sails. Yes. It's one of the topics I want us to talk about, because it's come up, in this during the campaigns, in the run-up to the elections, and so it's rather a very sensitive matter.
Yes. So if you look at one of the areas we've been engaging in, is around the tax justice campaign.
Yes. Okay. And, I won't let you take the wind out of my sails. I would like to go back to an earlier issue she raised. In fact, it's also one of the areas you're looking at: transformative feminist leadership. You're looking at development through feminist lens. This is not exactly new to ActionAid. Over the years, you've been working on this. You've been working with women. You've been working on women empowerment. I mean, in Ghana, since you commenced work here. So obviously, like she even alluded to that fact, ours is a country or even a continent that's so steeped in tradition, a tradition that the woman plays second fiddle to a man. that the woman comes second, takes second place after a man. I want to know how this cultural attitude stifled your interventions in women's rights and women's empowerment. And then I want to know what the new approach would be. If you're looking at transformative feminist leadership, what's the new approach? Bearing in mind that this cultural attitude, this mindset she mentioned, is still very, very much in existence.
Yes, if you look at it in this country, following the kind of work we have been doing, and also the work of other civil society organizations, we have come a long way. And if you look at time past, we've had a lot of engagements around the Domestic Violence Act, and of late they have passed the LI, making sure that this whole act is operationalized. Yeah. Now we are having discussions around the Affirmative Action Bill. Yeah, around the Affirmative Action Bill. And it's one area we're also looking at addressing, because the whole thing is around power dynamics, power relations between the two genders, the man and the woman. Yeah. So how do we bring people to the same table, to the same level, to ensure that the discussions around the development of the community, the household, the community, and the nation is taken at equal levels?
Yeah, right.
So this is where we are, and we want to move away from that and looking at in terms of equity. If you look at the population of this country, almost 52% are women. But if you look at it in terms of the number of women who are in decision-making levels, it's
not reflective.
It is not reflective.
Numbers, yes.
And so obviously, if you allow the men to take lead in some of these discussions, you realize that a lot of the development will skew towards,
let's now touch on the issue of tax justice, which you've been raising for a while now. You've reported that Ghana loses approximately $1.2 billion in tax incentives offered foreign companies. This is every year. This is not a Ghanaian problem. This is not even an African problem. It's a global issue. It's done the world over. So exactly what is your concern? Because I remember the finance minister waded in on this. He said we must discuss this in net terms, because there's no denial that the country is also benefiting from some of these tax exemptions that we offer foreign companies. So if you can quickly touch on that.
No, our concern is that there's no nation that can develop without raising its own income. You cannot solely develop on development aid and then also on loans. So to be able, even at the household level, for you to be able to make progress, you must be able to raise money within the household.
So the problem is?
So the problem is looking at the kind of incentives that we give away to some of these multinationals in an attempt to attract them to invest in this country, to create the necessary jobs that we want to do. So the point is that
because it's all in a drive for trade and investment competitiveness. No, that's the point.
No, the issue is that the investors are not only looking at tax incentives, they are looking at other parameters. For example, some other administrative related costs, like the cost of setting up and running of business, infrastructure, political and macroeconomic stability. So you give up the tax incentives, and yet you don't achieve the kind of revenue.
Anyway, so this is now one of your thematic areas.
Yes.
Okay, there's a quick one about unpaid care work, and I'm just wondering what that business about unpaid care work is all about. If you can touch on that, Tayo, in 30 seconds.
Let me touch on that. I think they do more of this in ActionAid Ghana, but then in some countries as well across the world. We're saying that the cost of the woman who sits at home, looks after the children, ensures that everything is working well within the home front, it's almost all the time sidelined. Okay. In the sense that people not believe that a woman, a woman is not working. That means that, well,
because by our constitution and makeup, we're the primary givers. We birth children, we're the primary givers. So what are you advocating, that women be paid for this?
We're saying that should be counted as payment, as part of the contribution of that woman to the home front, to the environment and all of that. If you quantify it in real terms, look at how much you pay a nanny. If you had a cook, how much would you pay a cook? So when you quantify all of this and you put them in monetary terms, this woman that you feel that is not contributing is definitely contributing somewhat to the family pot by saving that particular. So that's one of the key things that
we can capture this in our calculations with GDP or
exactly.
All right, thank you. I get it. Thank you so much. and good luck in your rebranding process. My guests this morning have been, now I lost your list. Okay, Olutayo Bankole Bolawole is a Regional Director, Horn and West Africa Action Aid. And then I also have Mr. Sumaila Abdul Rahman, Country Director, Action Aid Ghana. So they're just undergoing a process of rebranding, which obviously is resulting in some organizational shifts. And they have discussed some of the new areas of concern for Action Aid in the next 10 years. Yes, for now to 10 years. Thank you so much. You're watching New Day.